From South Australia to Western Australia, where Greens Senator Scott Ludlam will today formally launch his bid for re-election in the upcoming Senate poll. West Australians go back to the ballot box in early April. Now, just last week, Senator Ludlam made a direct plea to the Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, to think about Western Australia as more than just a mining state. Senator Ludlam joins us now from Perth. Senator, good to speak to you this morning.
Good morning.
This rerun of the Senate election in WA, is that going to work for you or against you?
I think it's going to work for Western Australia in general. We generally get our federal politics filtered through the priorities of Melbourne and Sydney, so it's a great opportunity to have federal politics seen through a West Australian lens. As for what it does for the Greens, we've got great momentum. The campaign's got a great feel about it, but that question really is up to West Australian voters.
So you feel as though you do have momentum personally, so you're confident that you will get a position in the Senate?
Look, confidence is a difficult word to bandy about. We had 5.5 months where we didn't know what the outcome of the election was. I'm very confident in our team. We've had an extraordinary volunteer mobilisation in the last couple of weeks. We've knocked on 20,000 doors, we've made 26,000 phone calls. Profile is high, the energy is very high. We've just got to get through the next 2 weeks.
Is there not annoyance in the electorate that they have to return to the polls, and will that work against you?
I think there is a measure of annoyance. I mean, the recount and then the debacle of the lost votes, I think, really shook confidence. I think the Electoral Commission has done a lot of work since then to tighten up its procedures. And since then, I'm not getting a great deal of pushback from people. I think people realise if you want confidence in your electoral system, when you have a stuff-up as serious as this, sometimes the only thing to do is go back and do it again.
I think there's no doubt that your profile has actually increased since the election. And of course, we've just recently, you made that speech essentially labelling Tony Abbott as homophobic and racist. Was that a particular tactical move on your part?
No, it wasn't tactical. It very much came from the heart. I wasn't expecting that speech to get the reach that it did. The fact is, it was an invitation to Prime Minister Tony Abbott, and as a matter of fact, he's only spent one night here since the campaign started. I think he's actually one of the most unpopular early-term Prime Ministers in modern political history, and his Liberal team are keeping him away from WA, which I think is actually quite instructive all by itself. To be honest, this campaign's not about Tony Abbott. This campaign, in my mind, is about protecting renewable energy jobs, getting public transport back on the rails, so to speak, and affordable housing. It's about things that actually matter to people, and the Prime Minister's absence from Western Australia, to me, speaks louder than words.
But you essentially shaped, in that speech, you shaped this as a battle between yourself, the Greens, and Tony Abbott's government.
Yeah, well, the Labor Party don't appear to be showing up for the fight. The Greens are the opposition at the moment because the ALP, for whatever reason, whether it's internal conflicts or whether they just don't have the energy anymore, don't really have a pulse. So we're doing what we can to take it up to the Prime Minister. And I think the response to the speech, which, as I say, took me by surprise, tells us that there's a lot of resonance, that a lot of people feel the same way.
So what are the issues in Western Australia that you're running on at the moment?
Uppermost in my mind are jobs and investment in the renewable energy sector. That's a sector that has a very, very urgent and important job to do, and they're directly under threat. If the renewable energy target is scrapped, thousands of people will be thrown out of work. If the Clean Energy Finance Corporation can't keep investing in large-scale clean energy plants, that also impacts on jobs. So that's the story that we're telling in this campaign. We need to keep the Clean Energy Act in place, and we need to make those investments in changes in the energy sector so that we can continue our prosperous way of life in the age of climate change.
Do you get a sense that voters in Western Australia are very mindful of the possible makeup of the Senate come July when it changes? In particular, Tony Abbott's desire to repeal the carbon tax, and it will be critical, the makeup. He will need those Liberal senators there if he is to repeal the carbon tax.
Look, I think people do have a greater degree of appreciation of the importance of the Senate and the importance of their vote in the Senate, and also seeing this huge field of completely random candidates. There's a lot of candidates and quite a broad diversity of candidates running this time, but there's also quite a large number of parties that don't even really exist in any formal sense, There's 10 candidates running who don't even live in WA, who are just there really to shuffle preferences from one place to another. So I think West Australians are definitely aware of the importance of this vote, and it's one of the things that I put down to the big surge in volunteer effort that we've had.
Last week in Tasmania, with the election there, we saw the Greens fare fairly poorly, or in fact very poorly. Is there a chance that that may reflect in WA and in what and in your vote? Are you worried that perhaps the Greens are on the nose in the electorate?
No, I'm not. I mean, WA is a long way from Tassie, and there are some very specific factors in play there, not least the fact that you had a fourth-term Labor government pretty much at the end of its rope. The dynamic here in WA, in a federal context, is completely different. So we are seeing a really strong surge in support, and we know we've just got to keep working hard because you can't ever take anything for granted. We'll be working every single hour up until the polls close.
Senator Scott Ludlam, thanks very much.
Thank you.